I have the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, and in today's tech tip, I'll be sharing with you more than 15 battery saving tips for your Watch Ultra. So these tips will help you milk the most battery life out of that 590 milliamp hour battery, which is still a very big battery for this Galaxy Watch. And I'll be showing you how to get even more battery life out of that battery. So I have 15 tips here, and these tips will not work for everybody because we all use our watches differently and for different things. So you can just pick the ones that will help you and leave the ones that will make your experience worse. So the first one I want to share with you is closing background apps. Now, every time you exit an app, so for instance, if you open the weather app and you hit the back button, you would think that app has been closed, but it's not. So you'll notice if you go, if you swipe up from the watch face and tap on this icon here, that shows you all the recently opened apps that are still running in the background. Okay, so all these apps are still running in the background. And what you want to do is come here and tap on close all. So you want to form a habit of doing that from time to time so that you don't always have so many apps running in the background of your watch, because the more apps you have running in the background, of course, the more battery they use. Number two is to clear cache. Now you can clear cache from the app level, and also you can go into recovery mode and clear the cache partition. So go into settings. Under settings, if you scroll down and go to apps and then go to app list, you're going to see a list of all the apps running on your watch, or basically all the apps installed on your watch. Now you can choose any app and scroll, and you should see the option to clear cache. Now at the top there, you can actually see how much cache data is on every app. So for this one, I have only 618 kilobytes. It could be more for different apps depending on how you use your watch and the apps you use. But if you tap on clear cache, it clears cache for that particular app. So you can always go back and find other apps that you use more and clear even more cache from these other applications. Okay, this one has 270 because I've been clearing, but that's basically how to do that. Now you can also go into recovery mode and clear the entire cache partition of your Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now I'll leave that video linked below on how to clear the cache partition, because it's a bit of a long process and I have a dedicated video for that. Number three is removing unused apps. So the more apps you have on your watch, of course, the more battery it takes to maintain them, to update them, and to just keep them running on your watch. So you want to form a habit of going through your watch every now and then, finding apps you don't use and uninstalling them. And this is very simple. So for instance, if you want to uninstall the Strava app, if you don't use it, just long press on it and then tap on uninstall and then confirm you want to uninstall, and that app is going to get uninstalled. And this is not even a big deal, because if you want to use it in future, you can always go ahead and reinstall it back to the watch. So you can have as few apps as possible on your watch, and that's going to prolong your battery life. Number four is to disable unnecessary notifications. Now, your watch by default will give you as many notifications as you may or may not need. So for instance, as you can see, I have notifications from almost every app on my watch. So most of these notifications are not required. And remember, every time a notification comes through, your watch vibrates, your watch makes a sound, your watch lights up the screen. So the more apps you have sending notifications to your watch, of course, that means the more battery is getting consumed. So you can mitigate that by going to settings. Under settings, go to notifications, tap on that, and then you can go to app notifications, and you can go ahead and disable notifications from certain apps. So for instance, if you don't want notifications from the Samsung Messages app, you can go ahead and turn that off, and you can go turning off notifications from all the apps you don't really need notifications from. And eventually you'll notice the more apps you have not sending notifications to your watch, the more battery life you get. Number five is to turn off the always on display. Now the always on display is a good thing, but sometimes it could drain too much of your battery. So if you go to settings, and then under settings go to display, and then under display you see the always on display. You can always go ahead and disable that. That's because you can always enable the lift wrist to wake screen and touch screen to wake when you want to check the time and you want to see what's happening on your watch face. You can always use these two functions instead of having the display always on. Okay, so that's another thing you can do. Again, remember, if you prefer to have always on display, then you can just leave it on. These tips will not work for everybody. Just choose the ones that work for you and leave the rest to us. Now, number 5 is to turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when you're not using them. Okay, so this watch has both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios, and they keep searching for available Wi-Fi networks when they're on, so that drains your battery. So if you're not using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi at the moment, you can always go to settings, connections, and then mostly for Wi-Fi you can turn it off from here. So if it's on, just go ahead and disable Wi-Fi. Okay, now most of the time you need Bluetooth to connect to your phone, but it doesn't have to be connected all the time. Okay, you can actually go ahead and turn off Bluetooth, and if you have activities that you're doing on the watch and other things that you're doing, your watch will keep all that data, and it will only sync when you turn on Bluetooth and your watch syncs with your phone. But Bluetooth does not need to be on all the time. Okay, so if you're one of those people who can use the watch without Bluetooth, then turn it off and it's gonna save you some battery. Now, next is to turn off NFC. Now, still in connections, if you scroll, you should see NFC and contactless payments. Now, this is always waiting for NFC chips to scan or to be scanned by, and if you leave it on, it's going to drain your battery. So you might want to go and turn off NFC. In fact, in my enable and disable NFC video, I've shown how to set up a shortcut where you can quickly turn on NFC when you need it. Maybe when you want to pay something at a contactless payment point, you can just quickly turn NFC on and off from the quick panel. So you can go and watch that video. I have those instructions explained there. But anytime you don't need NFC and contactless payment, you can turn that off, and that should save you some battery as well. Number 8 is to minimize vibrations. Now, I'll say this generally because you want to minimize vibrations on your watch to save battery. Now, there are vibrations everywhere. You have vibrations for messages and notifications. You have vibrations which are basically system vibrations, and then you also have vibration duration and intensity. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. If you go into settings and then go to sounds and vibration and then scroll down, you'll notice we have vibration section here, and you can choose between long and short vibrations. Now, if you have long vibrations enabled, then you might want to select short vibrations, which will basically shorten the length of the vibration. And also, you can have strong or light vibrations. So, of course, you want to go for the light vibrations, which will save some battery. And then also, you can go ahead and completely remove vibrations by, if you go down to, or rather up at the top there and choose sound, you'll have the option to disable vibrate with sound, so that notifications only make sounds on your watch instead of vibrating. Okay, but in case you prefer vibration, then you can make the vibrations short and light. And then also, if you come here slightly lower and select system vibration, you can actually disable vibrations that you don't need. So for instance, touch interactions, you can turn off vibration for that. You can turn off vibration for dialing keyboard. You can turn off the charging sound vibration for the Samsung keyboard. You can go ahead and turn off all vibrations that you don't necessarily need but are making your battery drain faster. So that's basically how to minimize vibrations on your Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now, also minimizing the number of notifications coming in, which we discussed earlier, contributes to reducing the vibrations on the watch. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is disabling gestures. Now, gestures are cool, but most of the time, personally, I don't use them. Now, if you really like your gestures, then you can leave those on and maybe try some of the other methods I'll explain in this video. But if you don't really care about gestures, then you want to turn them off, because if you leave the gesture setting enabled, it's always waiting for you to make that move, which means it's always the gyroscope is always trying to uh, see if you make a certain movement. So go to settings. Under settings, scroll down to buttons and gestures, tap on that, and then you can scroll down to gestures. Okay, so personally for me, I prefer to turn off all these gestures. So if I go to the double pinch gesture, shake to dismiss gesture, and then I can go back to the knock knock gesture and turn all those off, because I rarely use gestures, and leaving them on doesn't help but drain battery. Now you can also go ahead and disable some of those automatic health features on your watch that drain battery. Now, most notably is the automatic heart rate measurements. So if you go to settings, under settings, go to health, and you see heart rate. If you have heart rate set to measure continuously, that means your watch is continuously going to check your heart rate. And even you could have it set to every 10 minutes while still. That means every 10 minutes, your watch will attempt to check your heart rate. Now, if you have heart problems, obviously you may need this on, but for most people, you really don't need this on. Okay, so you can actually go ahead and turn that off, and the heart rate monitor will only come up during exercises. Now, speaking of exercises, if you go back to the main health menu and scroll down to activities to detect, you can actually enable and disable auto detection for specific activities. So let's say you like your watch detecting when you're walking or running. So you can actually go ahead and disable all the other options. Okay, other options that you don't need, and you definitely don't need your watch detecting and recording, and you can just leave the ones you intend your watch to detect and record. So for me, if it's walking and running, you can turn all the rest off. Now also, if you want to, you can turn this off, which is a more radical approach, and turn off the entire thing so that your watch does not auto detect workouts. So if you remember to start a workout anytime you're doing a workout to start recording, you can always, of course, do that by launching the workouts app, selecting your workout, and then record it. You have to do it manually instead of having the watch record it for you. Now, like I said, if you prefer to have your watch automatically detect your workouts, then that's something else. That's up to you. You can always leave that on and maybe use the other options in this video. And that takes me to my next point, which is GPS. Now, GPS, or also known as location services, are a battery drainer. Okay, and I mean, GPS is cool because you can use it to track your activities, especially when you're walking or jogging and all that stuff, and using Google Maps. You have to use GPS, but you don't use GPS all the time, and not every app requires access to GPS or location services. So if you go to your settings, which is the main settings page, and then scroll and find location, you can actually turn off location anytime you don't need it. Okay, so when an app wants to use location, it's going to request for access to location services, and then you can go ahead and use location then. But for most of the time, you don't need your watch GPS on. Now, if you want to, you can also enable that. Then you can go to specific app permissions and turn off GPS or location for apps you don't need accessing your location. So for instance, you can come here to Maps and grant permission only while using the app. Okay. Now you can scroll down and you can go to another app like the internet browser. Most of the time you don't need your internet browser accessing your location. So if you have that enabled, you can always come here and select don't allow. And you can go like that, managing location services or GPS on your watch. And for me, I like to keep location off and only turn it on when I need it for a specific app that needs location access. So that takes me to my next point, which is a very basic point on the Galaxy Watch Ultra that is built in, and this is swiping down and enabling the battery saving mode, or rather the power saving mode. So you can always turn that on, and if you long press here, you can actually go into the settings page where that setting is, and it tells you exactly what happens when you turn on power saving mode. It's going to turn off the wake up gestures, it's going to turn off the always on display and turn off Wi-Fi. It's also going to limit CPU performance, background network usage, location syncing, and then it's also going to decrease the brightness and decrease the screen timeout feature. Now in terms of limiting health features, you can turn that on or off, that's up to you, but that's basically what power saving mode does on your watch. So if you turn it on, then that's going to be a massive improvement in the battery life. Of course, you're going to have to give up some of the performance of some of the apps. You're going to have to give up some of the screen brightness, but that's what you get if you're trying to save some battery. So the other thing is the ultimate power saver. Now, if you need your watch to save as much battery as possible, then you can turn off all the features of the watch and have the watch only show the time and turn the rest of the operating system off. Now this is a mode on the watch and it's called the watch only mode. Now this mode will only show the time, okay? And when it's like this, then you can use the watch for weeks without charging it. And so to enable this feature, you have to go into settings. Under settings, scroll to battery, tap on that, and then under battery, if you scroll down, you should see watch only. Now tap on that, then it's going to give you, for instance, at my current battery life, it says I can go 12 days and 1 hour if I turn it on right now. So scroll down and turn on watch only mode, and that basically shuts down the entire operating system and only leaves the time like that. Okay, there's nothing else you can do on the watch, literally nothing else. The only thing you can do is press the home button when you want to see the time. The screen lights up with the time for a couple of seconds and it goes away, and you can use your watch for 12 days like this. Okay, now of course if you want to get out of this mode, then you can long press on the home button until the watch restarts, and it's gonna boot back to the Wear OS, where you can have access to the operating system and all the apps. But that's a very drastic measure. That's for hardcore power savers of the Galaxy Watch Ultra. Now, those are my tips and tricks on how to get the most battery life out of this watch, out of that 590 milliamp hour battery. If you have any more tips, feel free to add them in the comment section below. And also, I'm curious to know which tips you might want to use to save battery and which ones you can't live without, or which features you cannot cope with. So I'm curious to know what you're willing to give away, what you're willing to sacrifice, and what you're not willing to sacrifice in the interest of battery life. Let me know in the comment section below, along with any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Comments and questions down below, and good luck.